Hello and welcome back. My name is Kate. I'm trying the vertical position today for my lens. My name is Kate, and this is my mental health channel, my personal wellness channel. And I am going to talk about my diagnoses and the things that I've learned along the way of healing and also managing my diagnoses. I have ADHD, bipolar disorder, and CPTSD. And today I want to talk about over identifying with your diagnoses. This is a stage that I certainly had with each one of those diagnoses. And I think it's kind of an inevitable part of the journey. Once you get a diagnosis, you then kind of have to go back through your entire life memories and have this new lens of, oh gosh, maybe that's why I struggled here. Maybe that's why this happened. Maybe that's why that happened. It can actually be really a tumultuous time period because you're just having to reprocess all of your memories with this new understanding of yourself and how you function. And it can be a lot. A lot of people, have a therapist to help them with it because it can be a lot to process, and having a guide help you can help it be more manageable. Um, but talking today about over identifying, I noticed at some point in my journey that it became a self fulfilling prophecy. Like the symptoms became a self fulfilling prophecy when I really had this script in my mind that I had this problem with me, that I had this inevitable diagnosis that meant that there was this way that I functioned and that it was something that I couldn't help. A diagnosis can either empower you or it can disempower you. It can have both effects. If you're using it for the understanding yourself and what can I do to help better serve myself in the way that I function, then it can be very empowering. It can be very disempowering if you have this idea about yourself that you are limited or can't do things. There is a phenomena, which isn't really a phenomena anymore because we're really starting to understand it, but the placebo effect or the nocebo effect. This is where the brain, via the subconscious mind and the incredible suggestibility that it has, will go to manifest or create the thing that is suggested, as long as there's no interference. As long as it accepts the thing that it is being suggested, it will go to work to make it a reality. There are a couple examples that I have of how this can happen in a very physical way. For one, placebos are used all the time in research studies. When drug trials, for example, you have the actual active ingredient pill, and then you have the sugar pill, and you use them both on your guinea pigs to see what is just the brain or the subconscious mind creating the effect or the actual active ingredient creating the effect. There was a study done with an ointment where they told their volunteer candidates that the ointment had a like bee venom or some sort of ingredient that was an irritant, a known irritant to skin. And so they put the ointment on the test subject's hand, and what do you know, a big rash appears and it's super itchy. Come to find out that the ointment was just like a basic CeraVe moisturizer and there was no active ingredient in it. However, because their subconscious mind believed, they were told by a source of authority that it had this ingredient that would make their skin break out, their skin broke out. Like their mind did it. It was not actually a physical ingredient that caused it. It was the belief in their subconscious mind. So our subconscious minds are incredibly powerful, and they're listening to the things that other people suggest to it, and they are also listening to the things that we believe and that we suggest to it. So this has a big impact on how we internalize the diagnoses and whether it can help or hurt our case. I'm going to use a couple of examples with my own diagnoses. So, with ADHD, for example, I might tell myself, and I did for a long time, I can't focus. I'm so unfocused. I have this disorder where I just can't focus. And then that took a lot of space in my head, and it also became my reality. Um, Same thing with like bipolar disorder. My belief that I was just constantly unstable had me constantly searching in my environment and in my experience for evidence of me being unstable. And in some ways, it was just true because of the genuine diagnosis, and in other ways, I was creating it. You self suggest something to your subconscious, and then you hyper focus on the symptom and can intensify it if it's already there, or you can manifest it out of nothing. This is why I believe that doctors, especially psychotherapists, have an incredible responsibility to do no harm and be very mindful about the diagnoses that they are giving their patients, because they are, they have a doctor's coat on, they have a PhD certificate on their wall, they're a position of authority. So patients are not likely to question whether what they are being suggested is correct or not. They believe the doctor. So, all that to say, I don't believe in dismissing diagnoses. I profess that I have these diagnoses. I do. I know that I do. I I certainly had a period of time where I really rejected them, and I didn't want to be a victim to them. I didn't want to identify them, and that led me to a lot of problems. So I'm not recommending that you completely detach from your diagnosis and just dismiss it. I'm more so advocating for a middle ground, where you're not over identifying and you're not under identifying. You're using a diagnosis as kind of a framework to understand how to take better care of yourself. I really had a hard time latching onto the bipolar disorder. And I think that had a lot to do with just a misunderstanding culturally what was taught to me about bipolar disorder. I thought it was more of what is seen as a personality disorder, with like someone kind of flipping on you very quickly emotionally. That's not what bipolar disorder is. Bipolar is a mood disorder, and it's dramatic changes in mood state. So between like euphoria and depression. Yeah, I resisted it for a long time, but ultimately, there's so many people in my family who have it, and there are many of them have spent significant time in psychiatric care facilities, and yeah, eventually I had to acknowledge that it was within me, and I had to integrate it into my life and understanding. So that is where I am now, and I have a pretty balanced position on it. I acknowledge that I have it, and that I have a lot of things within my power that I can do to manage my symptoms. So that brings me to my next point. What sort of cognitive tools have I learned to support my symptoms, and to support my inner dialogue and the narrative that I give myself, and the way that I suggest my I am state, um, how I identify with myself. There are tools that I have. This is a long way to say this. That I have kind of affirmations, things that I say to myself to help empower myself instead of disempower myself. I hope that I made sense there. But to make sure that we are not creating a self-fulfilling prophecy with the discouraging things that we can say to ourselves when we've been giving a diagnosis, I have learned how to kind of to flip the script in a way that is empowering. So I used to say, I can't focus. I have ADHD. I can't focus. I'm very disorganized. My mind's all over the place. Instead of saying that, which just in general, never say I can't. It's just, there's always a different lens that you can look through that is not telling yourself that you have this major limitation. Instead of saying I can't focus because I have ADHD, I say I can I can focus incredibly well when I am interested in what I'm doing. And my subconscious accepts that empowering sentence because I know that that's true. That's something that I have plenty of evidence from in my experience. So instead of looking at like this struggle that I have, I'm actually like putting my lens towards, okay, I can focus incredibly well in this particular environment that I'm describing. So I can focus incredibly well when I only have the thing that I want to work on sitting in front of me. I can focus incredibly well when I've slept well. I can focus incredibly well when I have uh, eaten well, when I'm very hydrated. That can usually trigger me to know that if I am having a moment where I'm noticing that my focus is not um, as easy for me to just like dictate where I want it to go, that there was probably a habit that I did, that I initiated to create the experience that I'm having right now. So it's like I put the power back in my court when I am phrasing the narrative to myself um, with the lens of where I know that I can focus. That kind of triggers me to look at like, okay, well, did I do something that just totally depleted my energy or my dopamine? Is there something that I had control over that is creating this experience for me right now? I'll do the similar thing with mania and depression. Instead of saying I am manic, I will say I am experiencing mania. I don't give myself the identity of I am bipolar or I am manic or I am depressed. I say that I am experiencing it. And then that triggers for me to kind of go investigate what I might have done habitually to um, have that gene be expressing itself right now. And I also will kind of question whether it is really what I'm experiencing, particularly with mania. Sometimes it's mania, and sometimes I'm just happy. like it's not that. Sometimes I'm depressed, and sometimes I'm just tired. And that's a really important thing to experiment with and not automatically kind of put the credit for the experience on the diagnosis. What I've ultimately come to understand about all of these diagnoses, spilled something here, is that it's really, we're just humans, and people like myself, and like any of you who are watching who have these diagnoses or kind of resonate with them in some sort of way. Um, we're sensitive people. We kind of can't get away with the same things that other people can do, and still maintain stability. Again, as I said, there can be tremendous gifts that come with that, but it's just the diagnoses help us understand how to take care of ourselves better and understand that maybe we don't have as much leeway with certain behaviors as other people who are not quite as sensitive do. In many ways, I feel incredibly grateful because, like, I don't drink alcohol, for example, and there are people who do drink alcohol who look at me and they're like, how are you able to just so easily be like, nope, not for me. I'm, be in a room full of people drinking, partying, and I don't engage. And I say to them, I'm just like, well, because the consequences of me engaging and drinking are just too high. Like it's just too detrimental for me. As where, they're able to do it and still kind of, they still experience hangovers and this and that, but it's not so damaging to their life that they have to just completely cut it out. I'm fortunate in a way that, like, well, I don't have a choice. Like I have to not do it. Like the consequence is too intense for me to be able to function normally. So it just makes the choice very easy. I don't have to have these negotiations with myself because there is nothing to negotiate. It's a clear answer. So I hope this was helpful for you. I'd really like to expand on this topic more in the future. So we'll come back and revisit it. I am always just continually experimenting on things. And whenever I kind of expand into a new area or to a new understanding, I will come and try to share that with you, even if it's a topic that I've talked about before. Do let me know if there are any topics that you would like to hear specifically about. Other than that, thank you so much for your time and attention, and I will see you next time. Ciao.